This is Linux Unplugged, Episode 4, for September 3rd, 2013. Welcome to Linux Unplugged. Pour yourself a cold one, because honestly, this show probably makes a lot more sense after you've had a few drinks. Otherwise, it sounds like a couple of Linux users rambling about using Linux. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
Hey, Matt. So we made it to 4 episodes. That's a month solid, right? Man. That's awesome. So I was just telling I was just about to tell the story, and I thought, no, wait, I'll share it on. I'll share it on air because it's embarrassing enough that I should share it with the audience. So when my wife was pregnant, you know, one of the things prego ladies do is they get into these, they like to have certain foods, right? They want to have a food. For my wife, it was citrusy flavors. So lemonade was perfect. It's summertime. It's hot outside. Let's get some lemonade going on in this house. I got hooked, man. I got hooked on lemonade. Like, I've never been hooked on it. Every day, gotta have a little lemonade. Oh, this glass of water doesn't have any lemonade in it? I'll fix that. Pour a little,
Just every day a new thing, right?
Gotta have lemonade. So I mix in it with everything. So I'm at the grocery store doing the shopping because the wife was on bed rest. And I'm like, we got a lot of lemonade at home. Look at this. Lemonade vodka. Didn't know that was a thing. I mean, I've never tried it. I knew it was a thing, but I'd never tried it. So I grabbed myself a big bottle of lemonade vodka, or lemon vodka, and it turns out you could pour like half of that into a cup and pour half the other half with lemonade, go half and half, and it's just a delicious treat, Matt. Well, I had 2 of those like a week ago, and I'm still feeling a little hungover from that, just a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, vodka doesn't play around, especially if you get the good stuff. You know?
I did not get the good stuff, I don't think. I think it was like some...
that's why.
It was being sold in the grocery store, so... All right, so we have a fun show today. One of the things that's new is we've dialed into a new Mumble server. We've called up on our 56K modems and called in. And no, we got it set up. It's now hosted on Scale Engine. Price TX has been working took us off getting it all dialed in. We were on a hosted solution that Arbulus had set up for us that was awesome, but we kept hitting user limits. Turns out people wanted to hang out and chat with each other while we're doing the show. They wanted to be involved with the show, and it was a lot more popular than we expected. So now we're on a new Mumble box at ts.jupitercolony.com, and hopefully somebody in the IRC chat room will paste the port in there. But it's on a funky port. I'll try to put it in the show notes so you guys can, because it's going to be open 24/7. So if you guys just want to hang out, it's essentially kind of like it's an adjunct to the IRC that's always going. And we got rooms in there for every show. We got general hangout rooms. So we're going to jump in there. We've got an on-air channel now. It's port 64734, which, by the way, if you just highlight that line that Talks put in the IRC and then you open the Mumble client, it will automatically detect that on your clipboard and fill it into the server settings for Mumble. It's really
That's
nice.
kind of slick, right?
That's an application you could really feel like was meant for the Linux desktop.
Yeah, I like that.
And that audio ducking thing they do, like it feels like that Linux version of Mumble is a first-class Linux desktop application. Makes me excited what we might see in the future. Oh,
definitely.
So we're gonna chat with one of the folks that's in there. He's replaced Dropbox with IncFS and I think Git and a couple other things. He's sort of put these things together. He's wrote up a good post about it, and we caught it in our subreddit and said, let's talk to you. So he's come on. He's joined us. Yeah. It's like 11 p.m. where he's at right now. And he's had a heck of a day. Yeah. Today was one of those days, Matt. So on Friday, I went to PAX, as you know.
Yeah.
And while I'm at PAX, go figure, my phone starts buzzing. And I look down, hey, can you give us a call? We have an emergency. And so the way this works is I don't have any clients that I go to on a regular basis anymore. But in a few circumstances, if their main IT guy is out, and then their backup guy is out, and they're really, really screwed, they'll call me. I'm like third guy in line. And if you're calling Chris, if at that point, you're really screwed, right?
At that point, you really don't want to be the guy going in.
Oh, you know so true, man. So true. So there I'm at PAX, and I'm getting the third guy call, and I'm like, oh, no, this is bad. This is real bad. So I ended up, working out a schedule with them and worked them through some problems Friday night. Then Monday was Labor Day, a holiday here, so they were closed, thankfully. So I was able to do Coda Radio and all that. Go in there this morning, first thing. I roll in there 8:30 a.m. and they've been down now for 3 days, essentially. They went down roughly Wednesday night, Thursday morning. They were down all day Thursday, all day Friday. And they are under contract with Washington State to have certain things posted on their website within 4 hours of receiving it from the state. Or they're in violation of this contract. Right, and that's a huge revenue source, right? So if they violate that contract, then the contract goes up for bid, they lose it, and then they lose like 70% of their funding. So, of course, everything's on the line. And that was my morning.
Oh my God.
And I got into this whole custom scripted up system using rsync and NFS mounts all over the place. Every server's got a mount to every other server. Rsync's running, GNU Parallel running all up in this place. It is a spider's web of automation, Matt. And
it sounds like a mess.
It was a mess. So before we get to talking with Rami and do a couple of follow-up items, I wanted to just do a quick public service announcement. Speaking of things that are fantastic and optimized, today, just before we went on air for Linux Unplugged, the Jupyter Broadcasting browser plugins for Chrome and Firefox, which are linked at the bottom of our website, were updated. Now, first thing you should probably know is, at least in Chrome, I'm not sure about Firefox, it's requesting permissions. So you have to go in there and re-enable it. It'll be under the little hamburger menu, the little 3-line button. That's officially, by the way, being called the hamburger button. The
hamburger button.
Yeah, you click that, there'll be a notification. The reason why it is requesting new permissions, and it's very vague with the way they make it look, but the reason is we've made it a little more polite. So now if you're on somebody else's website and they have an Amazon affiliate link and you click it, our extension will not override that. It'll detect that and it'll be graceful about it. So that requires permission changes for that to happen, but that's one of the things. And then we've added woot.com. So now if you're shopping at woot.com and you have our browser extension installed, we will get a portion of your shopping session, which is awesome. And then on the Firefox side of things, I'm not positive if you have to re-enable it or not. I haven't tried it on my Firefox install yet, but we have Firefox integration improvements, performance improvements, and goodies as well. Of course, this is Woot and all that stuff over there as well. So new extensions being updated today, so your browser will probably get the update. And if you don't know about this yet, these are open source extensions. We have them linked up on GitHub in the Linux Action Show show notes, or you go to jbdev. Where was that? I can't remember. There's a jbdev site I have linked to on the show notes. And those are posted up on GitHub. They're open source. And we've actually got a good amount of people now. This is so funny. When we launched these extensions, I said, well, let's go open source so that way people know, we're not doing anything shady and anything like that. And if people want to use them, they can. That's fine. And people didn't necessarily think that was a good idea because there are other podcast networks that take them, right?
Oh, right.
But the other thing is...
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. But the other thing that's been really interesting is it's been big in churches.
Oh.
So I've heard from several people that are grabbing it for their church, setting it up and coding it for an affiliate code for their church, and then the members of that church, when they shop at home, are using a modified version of the Jupyter Broadcasting extension to benefit the church.
That's clever.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of a neat use of it. So there you go. So you can find links to those linked at the very bottom of jupyterbroadcasting.com, and then when you have those installed, they just automatically take your shopping session at Amazon, Newegg, Woot, Monoprice, eBay, lots of popular sites, and then it helps keep us on the air. All right, well, I'm going to unmute our Mumble channel here and say hi to the folks in the Mumble room, and specifically, I want to welcome Rami to the show. He's been a contributor to the network for a while. We send in emails to many of the shows, and he's active in our subreddits. Rami, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Chris.
So now, did I have it right? It's about 11 p.m. where you're at right now?
Yes, that's correct. It's now just 9 p.m. in the Netherlands.
Well, I know that you were fighting server outages all day, so I appreciate you joining us after the day of hell that you've had. And you caught my attention, I think it was last week, when you submitted a blog post about your encrypted file synchronization solution. Can you tell us what it is and what tech you're using?
Okay, yes, it's correct. I just recently bought a Chromebook, and I used SpiderOak, which is a locally encryption and then upload to the cloud tool.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work on ARM, and I have an ARM Chromebook, so I had an issue. I was already having issues with SpiderOak because of RAM usage, because I have over 90,000 files in there, and it doesn't really like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've also tried Voila, and it's also a local encryption and then dump the blobs in the cloud tool, and it also had RAM issues. And so I was looking for something else, and I already use Encafes. Encafes is a user-space tool that mounts your local folder, and you have an encrypted folder, and then you mount it, and then you have the unencrypted part. It just works with a password. and that's the encryption part and the synchronization part, because that's really important, that you also have the files on multiple devices, is using DVCS AutoSync. It's Distributed Version Control System AutoSync, and it works both with Git and Mercurial and other version control systems.
So you're not using SpiderOak at all because you're on ARM.
Yeah, I had to switch because I also needed the files on my Chromebook. The Chromebook runs Arch Linux,
right? Oh,
but Arch Linux ARM.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you're using so just so I want to make sure I get this. You're using InkFS for the encryption. You're using SSH to Git. How are you doing SSH to Git?
Correct. Well, I have a VPS just somewhere else, and the point is the encfs folder is only decrypted when you mount it. So the folder which I sync to the cloud is the folder the encrypted data.
Okay.
And how does it handle like small file changes? Like if you do you're only updating maybe 3 lines in your notes file, does it update the whole file? Is it?
Well, the encfs part works like this. It works per file, so that's very nice. It's not like you have a TrueCrypt volume and you have to unmount it.
Yeah, right.
It works per file, but because I have it set very strictly, you can give options if you want per file chaining and that kind of stuff. I've set it very strictly so that every change I make in a file after a write makes the entire file gets re-uploaded and synced. But you can also set less restrictive options which make only bigger changes to a file make it upload again.
Now, any way to make this work with a Windows machine?
Yes, you have, I think it's a few tools which support SSH on Windows. You have a few tools which support Git on Windows.
So what is your solution for mobile?
Well, Android. I only use Android phones, and there is an open source application in the Android App Store. It's called Encdroid, which I use to mount it.
Oh, okay.
The encrypted folder, and there's also a few Git clients in the App Store, so which you can sync back the encrypted part. The beautiful thing is you only in the cloud you have the encrypted part, and everywhere where you have encfs, you can mount a local part.
So with Encdroid, I'm going to go look that up right now. I did not even know about that.
Epic.
Yeah, that might be.
You also have an app that's called, I think it's Boxcryptor, and that's a closed source app, and it supports encfs, but it's for me really important that you have open source code so that you can make sure that nobody else gets your password and key.
Yep, big advocates of that here. Wow.
Yeah, with this solution, when you set it up, and I use it on a Chromebook, on a MacBook Pro, which I have for my work, on an Android phone, and on 2 other Ubuntu and Arch Linux machines, and it really works fine. It also handles deletions of files and folders.
So when you say deletions, do you mean it handles revisions of deletions?
No, when I remove a file, it's also removed in the version control.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's
SpiderOak had issues on that. When I had deleted the file on one machine, on the other machines it would just re-upload it because it thought it was a new file on the machine on which it was deleted.
So how do you? So with having all of your files in Git, then are you able to go in with like a Git Explorer and like pull out certain versions of stuff that you want and things like that?
No, and that is because in Git only the encrypted part is. So that's quite of a disadvantage. Not really for me. Right. Because the important files, I make manual backups. But
so because it's encrypted, Git can't make revisions because it doesn't know
what is what.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes revisions of the encrypted data, but not of the decrypted data. That's the whole point.
Right. Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
One other disadvantage is that you cannot have selective sync, so you cannot have a big NAS with all your files in your phone with just a few, and also because it's a disadvantage of not knowing what is what and having to mount it encrypted locally.
Right. Selective sync is nice, but it does allow you to be lazy too, which honestly that's how I use it.
And complacent.
Yeah.
And one of the other nice things with this solution is that, just as I said, I have a lot of source code for companies I work for in my encrypted folders. And as I said, I had over 9,000 files, and it has totally no performance issues with that. The RAM usage of the syncing process and the encfs is, I think, less than 90 megabytes, where SpiderOak was on 3 to 4 gigabytes.
Holy cow.
I got to play more with that. That's interesting. So you've got how you've done all of this written up on your site, rayme.org, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes. It's also linked in the subreddit. But
you know what a nice part was about? I put the article on Saturday evening.
Yeah.
It's the first article I did with a picture, with a diagram, and it was also on the front page on Hacky News. And normally my website has about 1,000 visitors a day, and it got 40,000 extra visits in the last 4 days.
Oh my goodness!
Whoa!
Whoa!
So you really notice that people are looking for such a solution.
Exactly.
It's not a one-click easy solution, but it still is there.
People are really looking to go off the grid in a sense, not actually off the grid, but off the surveillance grid.
To put themselves in more control too, I think is really the big focus.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And it's funny how on the other end of it, I've seen such an explosion in BitMessage adoption. I'm just buried now in BitMessages. It's awesome.
Yeah,
so
kidding.
it's like people are really looking, and we've seen a huge interest in mail servers too. Well, Remy, before we move on to the next topic, is there any other thing you wanted to mention about it, or any other thing you want to touch on?
Well, I just said it's not an easy one-click solution, but I hope it will help people with having their encryption and data truly secure and locally.
Yeah, I mean, you've got an encrypted sync solution here that is off the surveillance grid, and it's using all open source code, right?
Yes, that's totally correct.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
was
that's
one of the
awesome.
demands.
That's very awesome.
That's very cool. So we'll have a link.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you bet, man. Thanks for staying up for us after your rough day. I appreciate it.
Have you experienced RAID cards that only detect issues when you reboot the server?
Oh, yeah. It's funny how something about that reboot process. If there's something that's going to die, that's when it'll die, even if it's a drive. But yeah, I've had the RAID card go out on the database server.
Today I had 8 servers which had that issue, and about 24 drives are now dead.
8 separate servers?
Yeah, with all the same RAID card and the same firmware, the latest firmware from HP.
Wow.
Oh, did the firmware nuke it?
That might be it.
No, the RAID card only detects changes, disk issues when you reboot the server. So we had to reboot after scheduled updates, and 8 servers just said, "Whoa, my hard drives are dead, bye."
Oh my.
Oh,
goodness.
That is not a good day. That's a bad day.
I was up at 6 a.m. and it's now 11 p.m. and I'm only home for about an hour, so I'm going to sleep now. And my alarm goes at 4 a.m. the next morning because I have to be in the data center again.
Well, arm that coffee pot, man, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we'll have a good show, and I will listen to it tomorrow. And
right.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you bet. Very good. Go get some rest.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, bye, man.
Bye. Thanks.
So I wanted to just mention a couple of follow-up items before we chat more with the Mumble guys there. I meant to follow up on this a little while ago. I mentioned that I was frustrated that the GNOME search in GNOME 3 is not searching documents.
Mm-hmm.
It's just on my machine. And
is it really?
The only GNOME time I've ever used GNOME 3.8 is in this installation of Arch. In fact, when I installed this installation of Arch, it was like one of the few places you could actually get GNOME 3.8. It hadn't hit the other distros yet. Well, so I don't know why it doesn't work on my machine. It does work for everybody else on the internet, though, and they all told me. So we even got on the comments section for for last week's show. We even got a really nice screenshot. I don't know if you saw that, but it even looked. Of course, it's GNOME related, so it just looked gorgeous.
Sure.
But so
that's bizarre. That's bizarre. Of course, then I'm using Synapse or whatever you want to call it, and so I just. Yeah, I don't really have too many troubles there. So
yeah, your days are numbered, my friend. That Synapse project, they haven't been pushing new code for a while. They have not.
I'll probably go to GNOME.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And also, just a quick update. I made an app pick on last GD Map for scanning your drive and showing up in blocks for us KDE users. K4 dir stat.
Durst, really?
K4 dir stat, and that is a KDE version.
Sounds very German.
Some people say that even WinDirstat's based off of. So take that as you will. Okay. So I wanted to get to a topic today that it kind of got me thinking. In the subreddit, I think it was like an episode actually 1 of this show. I said, man, it sure would be great. Gosh, it'd be great if there was some sort of website out there collating the Steam numbers and giving us some nice charts to look at.
That would be fantastic,
right? And well, that happened.
Oh, cool.
One of our listeners, Matechi, I think Matechi. How do you Matechi? I bet it's Matechi.
Okay.
I bet that's how you say it. He started a Steam survey charts over at his site, and it is not looking good for Linux. Not looking good, Matt. In fact, when I say not looking good, I mean it looks real bad. It looks real bad.
Would it be bad, and I'm going to get probably set on fire for this, but is it bad to say it's because the folks that run Linux have jobs?
I was going to say it's because I was going to ask you, and so here's what I'm thinking. We take a break. We'll thank our first sponsor. Then I'm going to toss it to you. I got a couple things I want to throw your way. I'm going to toss it to you. Are Linux users on a whole? Obviously, there's going to be individual cases, but are Linux users cheap? And I got a couple.
We'll get into that.
Because I'm going to convince you. Otherwise, I think. But we'll see. We will see. But first, Matt, I want to thank our first sponsor this week. And that is Ting.com. Now, Ting is mobile that makes sense, my friend. And Ting was the lifesaver at PAX. I think I mentioned this on Sundays last, but really, I was the only guy, except for another guy that also was on Ting service, that had a working cell phone. And awesome. I cannot tell you, when I had a client who was in full-fledged freak-out mode and they needed Chris to make everything better, having to make that phone call, being able to make those phone calls while I was on the exposition floor of PAX, was invaluable. I would have paid any monthly service for that, and of course I'm just paying for what I use. That's one of the great things about Ting. Look, go to linux.ting.com. We got Linux for this show, so go to linux.ting.com. That'll get you $25 off your first Ting device, or $25 of service credits for your first month of service. I have the HTC One, and that guy powered through it real well, real good. I was quite happy. However, now, I know it's the same phone, but I just noticed now Ting has the HTC Blue.
Ooh, hey, that's new, right?
Yeah. Oh, and they also have this S4 Purple. I didn't know that. The HTC One Blue is going to be the phone I want, but I'm holding out. I'm going to see. I want to just say, if you've been looking at phones, go over to linux.ting.com, and you're not sure which one you want to get because these are off contract. That's a good thing, but it also means they're going to be a little bit higher in price. Of course, in the long run, you're saving money, and even after the cost of the phone, you're probably going to save money in some circumstances.
Oh yeah, you're going to save big buckets of money.
Right. However, you can buy used on Ting, and there's really a lot of options here. On that tab, they have buy used, and they have the personal shopping service where they'll go out and find a device. You just give them the parameters, screen size, OS, etc., and they'll go get you a refurbished phone that works on Ting. That's awesome.
Really awesome.
However, maybe you might be in a situation where you want to have multiple people on the line. Ting makes that real easy. It's just $6 a month and you pay for what you use. So you could have yourself a smartphone and maybe there's somebody else in your family. Maybe it's a significant other. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a kid and they don't need to have a full-fledged smartphone, or you don't want them to have a full-fledged smartphone, or maybe you don't want a full-fledged smartphone. I mean, I can totally understand that. They have got the Samsung, which is a really great flip phone, the Samsung M370. It's very sturdy, very reliable, $52. And if you go to linux.ting.com, Ting is going to take $25 off of that. So that's
practically nothing. Yeah.
That's practically nothing to get you on a Ting phone, right. And then you're only paying for the price you use. Ting just takes your minutes used, your text, and your data, adds them all up at the end of the month, and then puts you in a bucket, and you can check on their online dashboard at any time to see where you're at, to know exactly where you're trending. And the great thing is if you go with a smartphone, you get all these great features like built-in hotspot and tethering. You've gotten caller ID and all these things that the other cellular companies will sort of fit into the tax brackets or sort of fit into like these bolt-on services, and none of that happens. No ride-alongs with Ting. It's just nice, easy, straight, simple forward mobile. They've also got that Airwave, so if you want to boost cellular service in your house, you can plug one of these into your house. It'll use your internet connection, and then you get 4 bars or 5 bars, whatever your phone reads. You get full signal in your house, and then but the phone, the OS, everything is just talking over the cellular. So everything that you would have work over your cellular works right over one of those things. It's really, really quite good.
That's cool. Yeah. And to be able to take $25 off of any one of those, especially that little flip phone, that's pretty cool.
I know. When you're starting at $50 and then you take $25 off, and then you're paying just for what you use every single month, this is this is the value. This is the best value out there, and the service is great, the people are great, and the company's really good too. So go to linux.ting.com and get yourself something nice on a really easy to use, simple to follow site. I was so impressed when I activated my devices, how easy that was. Man, you just recently did that. Tell me, is that not the most straightforward device activation process?
I couldn't believe how simple it was. I mean, like even though that it was still, I had to make sure it was basically deactivated from your stuff because I got the phone from you. It was brain dead simple to do. I mean, it was just like type in a couple buttons. I mean, the instructions were easy to set up, and then once I actually activated the phone, it was like 3 seconds, like boop, boop, damn, boom, done, reboot.
I feel like good UI designers. And, I think maybe Ting's got like a real good group on their hands. And maybe here's what their trick is. Here's what makes a good UI designer. I say you get 3 or 4 beers into the wind, then you try to use your site. And if you can use it efficiently, you know you got a really well-designed site. Well, let me tell you, Ting passes the 3 or 4 beer test. I've been on Ting's website several times, 3 or 4 beers in, and I never get lost. So I just say, if you're an interface design person out there, go take a look at their site, learn a little bit, and try the beer challenge for yourself. And it makes for a fantastic website. It makes it super clear and easy. So that way when you have family members, like my mom's on Ting, and when I have her go to the Ting site, I can just remember it all from the top of my head when I'm walking around because it's so straightforward. So I'm like, yeah, click there. Okay, you're done. Bye, Mom. And we're all set. But if Mom wanted to call into Ting, she could. Ting has representatives that answer the phone. You can call them 1-855-846-4389. And they're available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You call in and a real person answers the phone. And so if there's something Mom can't do on the website, I just have Mom call Ting.
Well, and that's awesome because not only are they going to get a real person when they call in, but if they're not really into doing stuff on the website, they prefer to deal with a person. What a great option.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So go to linux.ting.com and start saving right now, you guys. Don't be crazy. Don't be crazy. All right, Matt. So here we go. You ready for my Linux users might be cheap? And I'm a Linux user. I'm not cheap, but I'm just saying. So I got an inside guy. I don't know if he's in the chat room right now, but I got an inside guy, and he's been sussing out the number. Suss is my word of the week. He's been sussing out the numbers from the Ubuntu Software Center. And we're looking now, Ubuntu, supposedly the #1 deployed desktop Linux operating system. Our own web stats would back that up. The #1 app in the Ubuntu Software Center right now is FileCryptor Professional. The #2 app is WPA Generator, and the #3 app is FileCryptor. All right. Out of these top apps, the first app goes for $4.99. The second app goes for $3, and the third app goes for $2.99. Now, here's the thing. These are the top 3 applications in the Ubuntu Software Center. None of them have ratings. None of them have average. None of them have comments. Nothing. They're all blank. I should take comments back. Ratings. None of them have any interaction on that level. And when talking to these developers, they're making, at best, a couple $100 a month.
And that's being pretty generous.
From the software center.
Really, yeah, that's pretty generous.
It is. And that's like the top, that was like the top app, actually, that made that much money. And now the time skew was a little short. It wasn't a full month, but still, it is, the numbers are devastating. Now we go over to Steam. Since Steam has launched, it has gone in a sharp decline. On January 13th, Linux Steam usage had a 1.12% market share. On February 13th, it went up to 2.02%. That was after we were out of beta and all this good stuff. Then, from that point forward, June goes down to 1.07%, July 1.06%. Now in August, we're below 1%. We're at 0.93%. So we're dropping off.
Okay.
Now, you got to ask yourself, because Linux is free and a lot of the software is free, is it more attractive to people who don't want to pay for software? Is this not a marketplace where you can make a living writing software and selling it to Linux users?
So here's how I see it. First of all, if I'm going to buy anything, if I can get an equitable alternative for free, I would be mouth-breathing stupid not to. So of course I'm going to go that route. Now, as far as the two marketplaces, whether it be Steam or the Ubuntu Software Center, the Ubuntu Software Center is a little bit like trying to do grocery checkout at your dentist office or at the DMV. It's horrible. It is absolutely hideous. Now, for free apps, it's reasonably painless because all you're going to do is enter a password and you're done.
Yeah, but when you buy an app, you got to put in your shipping address and everything.
Oh God, it's just stupid.
Yeah.
So so that's hideous. Steam's is actually not so bad, but I think that the bigger problem, especially when you look at it from the fact that, I'll use Steam as a better example because that's really where we had a nice peak and it kind of dropped off. I think the people that were really excited about getting on the games have then done so, and I would be interested in comparing a contrast with what's going on in the Windows space. Is there also a decline there? Or perhaps maybe there's a surge of new Windows games coming out to where maybe there's not as many compelling new Linux games coming out.
That's an interesting point. The Windows penetration seems to be fairly steady. In January, it was 94.56%. It drops down slightly between February and July, but then it's back to 94.59%, slightly above where it was in January. So since Linux has come out for Steam, Windows usage has actually gone up slightly.
And so I would say that it's not so much I don't think the problem was with Linux at all. I think it's a lot of its availability of give me something compelling. Okay, for existing Linux games, do you have a map pack that's come out? Maybe there's a something compelling to add on to my existing games. What new things are out there as an existing Steam user that's going to make me say, oh, hey, let me make that purchase? Maybe there are some games that are out there. Maybe there aren't. Maybe you're already into your game and you would like to expand on that existing experience. So I would need more data before I can completely rule it out as a Linux thing. Because I mean, like the Humble Bundles.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Is done really well. And so, but then again, they're doing it's something different. And
I think honestly, the success of that Humble Bundle was one of the things that brought Steam over. I mean, that's a good point. I'm gonna I don't know. I'll ask the Mumble Room. I don't know if the guys in the on air channel if anybody in here has any thoughts. If Linux users are just cheap, with
software, I would say yes, but not with games. That's my big difference.
Do you think it's maybe Linux users are willing to pay for certain things and not other things?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I look at like when I try and find something on OS 10 because I have to do this occasionally. It astounds me at the stupid software titles that are they're charging $20-$30.
Oh yeah, I know, right?
It's just like, and it's like, you really think I'm going to do that? No, it's like I'm not going to give you my money. So I think that it's a lot of what you're used to. Linux users have an expectation that if they hunt hard enough, because the Ubuntu Software Center is not the end all to be all of software. If you hunt hard enough, a lot of times you can find a package that's compatible with your distro that's going to offer you a way to accomplish the task you're trying to do. May not be as glossy, may not be as pretty, but a lot of times you can get it done. And you can get it done for free.
So we got the Mumble Room open. We just heard Jack in the Box typing a little bit. But I'm curious, anybody in here, Josh or Mad Joe or Miracode, we haven't heard from you, or Westra's in here. We haven't heard from you guys. You guys think Linux users are cheap? Do you think it's something else? What is your explanation?
No. Go ahead, Microcode. You first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a few milliseconds closer than any of you living in Toronto. I think it's a mix of the fact that people are a little bit cheap. However, I think a lot of professional users also use Ubuntu systems, and that may be part of the issue, where we have people who are generally busy going in and not having time really to play these games.
All right. So, Josh, what do you think? Josh, is it Linux users are too busy?
No. So, my opinion is, for instance, with the Ubuntu Software Center, those apps, like half of those apps are not integrated with the operating system. They're using like an old GTK library, which, like for instance, GTK 2, which one looks terrible, and two, the apps just suck.
Like Jungle Disk style, yeah.
Right, and then they're just charging like an obscene amount, and like,
well, it's $4 or $3. Is that an obscene amount? I mean, so the top we had $4.99, $3, and $2.99.
I think for apps that don't integrate with the OS, that are outdated, or for instance, when I went on there the other day, I saw a Windows Phone 8 app in there, which is just like, I don't even know how that got through the review process, but it was in there.
So you're talking about applications rather than games.
I'm talking about applications within the Ubuntu Software Center regarding Steam. I think people want a very smooth experience, and I don't think we're quite there yet, and it's not at the fault. It's not exactly at the fault of the developers. With some, it's regarding their game optimization, but with some, it's the drivers. We're getting there. I think it might be a couple of years, depending on Linux adoption. I think Valve's really pushing it, so I think we're going to see drivers improve a lot. But I just don't think we're quite there yet with a lot of the games, and a lot of the AAA titles aren't even on Linux. So until then, I'm kind of like stuck on Windows.
Yeah, that's true. We are still missing. Yeah. Okay, well, so is it this? Oh, so Green in the chat room is mentioning System 76, and I would say they are a premium brand. They are a very high quality device that delivers on what they say. And I feel like as a Linux user, I'm more picky about what I spend my money on. Like, I'll buy Steam games if it's a good game. I've bought apps from the Ubuntu Software Center. Now I can't really use them, but I have. And I'll buy a Bonobo when there's a good Linux laptop. So for me, is it actually that Linux users maybe are just more discerning?
I would lean with that. I think that our expectations are we're not going to get the first bill of goods that you serve to us. We're not going to necessarily jump on board like we see with OS 10 and Windows, OS 10 especially.
Another issue
that's where I've really seen it the worst.
Mac.
So I think that's definitely a big piece of it. But as far as like integration and all that, and as far as like making an application center that doesn't suck, I hate to beat the dead horse again, but I'm sorry, it's been done. And we're going, and Ubuntu went backwards. Not only did they go and hire Linspire developers that worked on CNR from Linspire and actually integrated them into the Ubuntu software project, they then managed to make it suck harder. So it's like, I don't know how that works.
Ouch.
Because Linspire sucked. Don't get me wrong. I hated their model. I didn't like a lot of what was going on there. But that piece of it, before they decided to make it available to all the distributions, was the most seamless software experience I ever seen. It was just apt. It wasn't anything wonderful. But I could do an entire aisle of software, go to another computer, log in, aisle, bam, done. It was very, very seamless. So, the Ubuntu Software Center really lacks that seamless experience. Steam, however, is pretty close. I think Steam is probably closer than anything else out there for Linux.
Yeah.
So,
but are we going to see that?
So
go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Josh.
go ahead.
I just think going back to that question you asked, are Linux users cheap?
Yeah.
I don't think we are cheap. I think because we're power users, we're all power users. We want to find the best for us, and we will look until we can't look anymore to find what we want. And then at the end of the search, if there's something that's not free, then we will end up buying it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move us on.
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
address some
Go
of
ahead.
your-
Go. If you
your-
didn't get a chance to toss in, so if you had a final closing thought, go ahead.
So with Ubuntu Software Center, yes, there are some issues. Performance is certainly one of them.
Yeah.
And one of the other issues is the minimum payment level is quite high. So there are no 99-cent apps in Ubuntu Software Center because of the payment provider that Canonical uses to do the payments for apps in Software Center, which makes it less attractive for people making very small apps that could potentially get very high volume sales. Not everyone in every region can pay because certain restrictions with credit cards and certain ages it makes it difficult, and they might not be able to use PayPal either. And there's also a significant hurdle to installing apps because you have to sign up for an Ubuntu single sign-on account, and that's not seamless inside Software Center.
Right.
And the fundamental issue, there's a lack of content. When you don't have enough content, when there isn't the sea of applications that you get on Android and on iOS, where you can just page down and page down and page down and keep going. Okay, you'll find some dross in there, but there'll be an awful lot of stuff in there for you to choose from. You'll almost certainly find it. And until we've got that vast amount of content, it's very difficult to get realistic sales figures.
So is AppGrid going to solve some of this problem? Is Ubuntu's new Software Center redesign going to be sort of a reset on some of this?
Yes, to some degree. And part of it is that we haven't jumped the chasm yet. We're still, as Chris says, we're geeks. The people who are using Linux and Ubuntu, even now, are mostly geeks, and so they're looking for geek tools, and they're happy with wget and downloading an RPM and using Alien to turn it into a deb, or that kind of stuff. Whereas normal people, we haven't got to them yet. The mums and dads and the kids, we haven't got to them. So it's very difficult to say that this is like normal behavior. It's normal for us, but it's not normal for them.
Right.
And ideally, this will all be fixed with 1404 and 1410 with click packages and in-dash purchases. So you'll be able to just scroll down through the dash, see an app, and just click on it and install it. You won't have to go off to a store to go and find it.
I've always thought that. I've always wondered if that'd be coming to the dash. That makes a lot of sense that would be in the dash, because the dash has the ability to suggest and recommend apps in the Software Center. So
exactly,
and then the dash becomes useful.
You can kind of see like the pieces of it are there. Cool. I'm going to link to a little article here that's talking about getting AppGrid on 1304, and takes a little look at it. I know it's something that Canonical's working on. So I'm hopeful that what I come back to is I hope it does come down to it's the challenges to payment, it's the challenges to create an account, it's the price issue, it's the inventory issue, and it's also the volume issue. And so it's not any one particular thing. So it's not fair to say, well, Linux users are cheap. That might be a component of it. I would say they're more picky. And
there's also we haven't had a decent unified SDK across across all the platforms. And now we're building one that works on phones, tablets, TVs, desktops, everything.
Yeah.
So effectively a developer can write their app, sell it for 99 cents, and it will run on all those form factors. Ideally, that should bring more people in. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Come back in a year and see if it's fixed.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely, if it doesn't result in that, it's at least the right move to make, and it seems to only be setting up for success. Who knows if it'll bring success, but it's at least positioning in the right direction. So
let's hope so.
I'm hopeful. All right,
I'm hopeful as well.
So we declare it. Linux users not necessarily cheap. And to stay tuned. And, honestly, I think what you see there in the Steam stats actually being reflected is initial excitement and then sort of people getting, like you guys are all saying, getting back to work. But what it does show you is when all the Linux users are really excited to go in for some reason, and maybe it's some new release or some update, you can get up to 2% of Steam on Linux. Now, maybe your sustained average run rate is 1%. But on peaks, if you can get up to 2%, that at least means the audience is there for Steam. And, it could be different members of that 2% are in there at different times. At any given time, their concurrent rate is only 1%.
That's true. No, that's actually a good point. I still think that could really do wonders if they could find a way to get people to come back and say, hey, I've got the games I'm really excited about. That's not going to change. I'm not necessarily looking for new ones. Get me something that's going to enhance my existing game experience.
That's why I like that Natural Selection 2 so much, because that just feels like a AAA. People send me in bit messages saying, turn down your texture quality and it won't crash as much on you, which always hurts, right? Because on the Bonobo, first thing I do, I go and say, everything crank everything, all of it.
It's out of principle.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. I just wanted to kick a topic around with you. It's not too related to Linux, but it happened today, and you got to wonder, you look at Ubuntu Touch, you look at Firefox OS. So I'm going to ask you, Matt, Unity Sync. I got to talk about Unity Sync before we go on. Our second sponsor this week. What is Unity Sync? We'll find out for yourself. Go to derwiz.com/UnitySync, but I'll give you a hint since you're asking me. Unity Sync is a centralized service that synchronizes data between different types of directories. Now, I don't mean like a directory on your hard drive. I'm talking real enterprise-grade directories, Active Directories, Zimbra directories, Open LDAP, Communigate Pro, Oracle Internet Directory, Sun1, iPlanet. Yeah, it'll do iPlanet group-wise. Yeah, enough people actually asked. They implemented group-wise support. It'll also do Microsoft SQL, Access, Oracle Sybase, MySQL, Postgres, SQLite, LDIF, CFV files. Here's what you can do. You can move either the entire directory or just attributes of the directory seamlessly between the different directories, and all from the Unity Sync service that runs on either a Windows box or a Linux box and doesn't require its own database. Unity Sync allows you to solve this problem that has plagued IT for centuries. Since we have had online databases, IT has struggled with this. I know your plight, friends. I know your plight. And here's the good news. No scripting or programming is required. All of Unity Sync's attribute management is handled by an easy-to-learn template system, requiring no programming experience. However, there is a little Python under the hood, or not Python, Perl, that you can get in there and do some Perl scripting if you want to do some massaging. These templates are great. You can make sure data is exactly what you expect. Look, when Susie in HR updates her application because somebody new or somebody changed their last name, you need to get that reflected in whatever the IT database is pointed at for the global directory for your entire company. You want to look like one unified organization with different data stores. Unity Sync solves that for you by bringing all of these things together and letting you control it. Plus, Unity Sync's easy to use web interface lets you do dry runs, lets you get reports, lets you just check on the status of things. It's really quite easy and quite simple to set up, but yet extremely powerful. Clocking in at just under 5 megabytes, this enterprise-grade software, friends, and of course, it runs on Linux, is used by some really big names, including, the Canadian Department of National Defense. Yeah, those guys. Yeah, you've heard of them? What about General Dynamics? Yeah, General Dynamics, they're a customer of Unity Sync, and they use Unity Sync to move data between their different directories. The MLB, Washington Nationals, as well. MLB Major League Baseball HQ also uses Unity Sync. You baseball fans, FYI on that one. You're welcome. Go over to derwiz.com and check out Unity Sync. Just go to derwiz.com/Unity Sync. And when you decide you want to grab it, just to try it out, you can get a free trial. If you use the code Linux, it'll extend it to a full 30-day trial. So you get an extra extended trial, plus your first year of maintenance is going to be absolutely free. So once you pull that trigger, you're going to be taken care of for a year. And that's a really great deal. So go to derwiz.com/Unity Sync. Check it out and be impressed. I know it's going to solve your problems. I have struggled with this myself. And if you're out there with this kind of problem, Unity Sync is going to make you the IT hero. So thanks to Derwiz for sponsoring Linux Unplugged. So I'm going to ask you, Matt. Microsoft today announcing they're buying the Nokia phone division for $7.2 billion. This is coming from, well, everywhere on the internet. Stephen Elop will be stepping down as Nokia's CEO, and he'll be heading up Nokia's devices and services division, which is actually going to just become part of Microsoft. And Nokia will now focus on their Nokia Now brand, which is their mapping stuff, and their Nokia network services stuff, which I guess they've had some good traction lately. And the 30,000 employees of Nokia will be joining Microsoft. And Microsoft will be taking the Apple route and the Nexus route of developing their hardware more closely, sort of like the Moto X or the iPhone.
Right. Well, yeah, they're following Google's suit. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing.
So what do you think this means for so it's already a very locked down market. I mean, it's you got your incumbents, Android, iOS, and BlackBerry and Microsoft in there. And we were already saying, like, gosh, this doesn't seem like it's very practical for somebody like Ubuntu Touch or Firefox OS to break in. Is Microsoft becoming a phone maker? Is this a big deal? Is this going to lock it down completely, or is this a total irrelevant move?
Well, here's the problem: is that first of all, like, let's go to like the Firefox phones, for example. They've mastered grassroots. They obviously have got it nailed. I think they totally nailed that one. So that's something they can go to like eBay or something totally obscure and still get the sales happening. Microsoft is under the amusing delusion that they're still relevant in this space, and it just cracks me up, especially if they're as the CEO is retiring. Anyway, so, cough, cough. Yeah, right. Anyway, so the whole point of it is that, so just because you go and buy a company like Nokia, who back in the 90s were really awesome, and they still maintain decent numbers out of the United States. I'm sure there's still people that use those phones over the borders. But honestly, I don't really see that as being a real relevant, exciting thing because, the Firefox phone comes out or the Ubuntu phone comes out. It's something completely unique and different that we haven't tried before. Where with the Windows phone, we already tried it. We weren't real impressed with it. So now we want more of it. It doesn't really jive.
I get you.
You know what I mean?
Let me give you a devil's advocate here.
Think so.
Okay, I'll play devil's advocate. I'm in the enterprise. I'm a business. Let's say I'm a hospital. I've got a lot of Windows applications. But one of the things you can't argue is Surface RT is kind of a snore, right? And
it's crap.
Yeah. But Nokia, on the other hand, makes fantastic hardware. They do. If I had a Nokia made Surface RT or Surface X86 or whatever, and I'm a doctor's office, I'm a hospital, I've got all of this stuff already on the Windows platform, I can get these devices, I can have them cooperate with my file formats, I can have them access my Windows file servers and join the domain potentially and all this kind of stuff. I can have group policy applied to them, etc. Maybe not on RT, but on the x86 version. Could it be that what Microsoft is going to do is sort of lock down this sector of the market where it's a personal device, but it's a business device first, and it needs to get some work done, and it needs to be compatible, and maybe this is what they're going to do is create a hardware platform that is all of these disenfranchised Windows 8 corporations who are refusing to go to Windows 8. Eventually, you're going to have to pick something. They're either going to have to go to 8 or 9, whatever it is at the time they make their leap. They're going to have to switch to Linux. They're going to have to switch to the Mac. What if Microsoft came to them and said, well, look, a ton of your staff members are coming in with iPads and Android devices, and this is driving your IT crazy. And you guys can't standardize on this. But they obviously need this functionality. It's great for meetings. It's great for taking inventory, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So here's what we're going to do. We're Microsoft. We now own this hardware company. We're going to work directly with them to make a Windows product. And this is what you can move to. You can have Windows on the desktop. You can have Windows on the server. And now you can have Windows on the mobile client device. And we create all of it.
I think that that's the right idea, but here's why they won't do it. I mean, they should, and that would be if you were working for them, they'd actually be doing well because you're right. That's exactly where they need to be. They need to be an enterprise, and they need to make things seamless for the end user as well as sane for the IT people.
Look, man, I got a good piece of malware, and I need to get that across your entire organization as fast as possible.
Right. Well, yeah. No, I mean, they can still lock it down at some level, I'm sure. But it's Windows, so you're still going to always have that as an issue. But besides that, I think that, yes, if they stuck with the IT market or stuck with the enterprise market and really continue to master that's where they do well, that would be fine. But that's not what's going to happen. What we're going to see is another commercial with dancing idiots and flapping tablets, and they're going to try for consumer again. That's the problem. You see, if they stuck with what you're talking about, that would actually make a lot of sense. But they won't do that exclusively. They'll dabble in that, but the consumer market is sexy. You know, they want to be kind of the Apple folks. And when they get a new CEO in there, I think that's what's going to happen. I think that they're going to be like, well, we need to be more relevant in the consumer market because that's really where growth is. Because the enterprise market, they tend to kind of lock down in segments and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, and stagnate.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen banks still using Windows 2000.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
It's bad. It's bad.
So, they know that. So they want growth.
I'll ask, Mumble chat room, anybody in here that wants to chime in, what do you think? Is Microsoft buying up Nokia bad for the free and open mobile operating systems? I'm thinking specifically Firefox OS, Ubuntu Touch, because I kind of saw them as having potential inroads to the enterprise, especially Ubuntu Touch with convergence. I think that could be big in enterprise. But if Microsoft comes along and they've got Nokia hardware, they've got the Windows desktop, they've got the Windows mobile crap, it's all crap, but enterprises will buy it anyways.
It's standardized, that's why, yeah.
Yeah, is this sort of closing the door of opportunity for these up-and-coming mobile operating systems? Mumble Room, I ask you.
Not. I hope not. But as Mr. Mango also on the chat room mentioned, Nokia owns a lot of patents, and I think that Microsoft is going to use those patents to hurt Firefox and all the other operating systems.
Oh, right. That's a great point. Yeah.
Nokia
that is their style.
Nokia still owns a large segment of their IP. The difference is Microsoft has like a 10-year reciprocal license with Nokia regarding those. So I believe Nokia still owns a lot of its patent portfolio.
Some of it, like the Qualcomm stuff, goes to Microsoft. The other stuff, Microsoft has a 10-year license, I believe, with the option at some point, at any point, to make it a perpetual license.
Right. So regarding Nokia getting bought out for the most part by Microsoft, it shouldn't come to anyone by surprise. Back in Build 2012 and reiterated in 2013, Microsoft clearly stated that they're pushing more towards becoming a devices and services company. Mm-hmm. So,
because they've done so well so far.
Yeah, right. Well, apparently the Surface Pro is doing all right. It's just the Surface RT that's been a complete flop, and everyone knows why.
Yeah.
Right. That's true.
But Nokia is a very established brand, and if they could bring that level of hardware to Microsoft's other products, we might see a bit more success. I don't know, and I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I think the patent thing is going to be the scary thing to watch. I totally agree with you guys.
The patents are still owned by Nokia, and Microsoft just have a cross license to use them. That doesn't mean they get an opportunity to use them in court against other people.
Well, some of the Qualcomm stuff will be owned by Microsoft, and there's a lot of cellular stuff in that Qualcomm portfolio.
Right, but they don't own Qualcomm license. They just are allowed to leverage the current deal that Nokia has with Qualcomm.
Yeah, right. So they probably couldn't sue over that. Yeah, right.
They can't pull the trigger on it.
Okay. Yeah, so they're okay. Good point.
What I find interesting is that Nokia have let Microsoft use the name Nokia on their products, but and Nokia can't make smartphones under this agreement until 2015, in which case they are allowed to make smartphones. And the announcement said that their award-winning design team, manufacturing and assembly facilities around the world that Microsoft are absorbing, but it doesn't actually mention engineering, software development, and research.
Right. In fact, I believe Nokia's lead designer just announced he's leaving Nokia to pursue entrepreneurial opportunities. It was.
And that could be a good move for Yola, or Mozilla may go around hiring, or Canonical.
Oh man, like one of those. That would be interesting if they snapped him up. And like Jerem's saying, man, am I glad QT is out of Nokia now, right? QT has been saved. Now, what do you guys think about the kind of the elephant in the room is, so Stephen Elop, former Microsoft employee, goes to Nokia. Everyone has always said he's a Trojan horse. Now he's going to step down as CEO, and he's going to become head of devices and services, which is getting absorbed by Microsoft. Julie Larson Green, who had just gotten promoted in this whole reshuffle, she got moved way up to the top and was reporting right to Ballmer, now reports to Elop, and Elop reports to Ballmer. So do you think Elop is our next CEO of Microsoft?
Yes.
I would say he's either that or he's going to be our Dick Cheney. I think like they'll have like I'm sorry. I mean, he's not. I mean, just looking at this picture, you got to have someone that's he's just. I can't. You got to have a nice figurehead in there, and I think they learned their lesson from Ballmer that he's just not really. The consumers just aren't really buying it.
So you got Elop pulling the strings of some.
Yeah, I got him pulling the strings. I think he's the brains of the operation for sure, but I don't think he's the front man. I think he's behind the scenes.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, almost anybody be an upgrade from Ballmer, though, right? I mean,
gosh, don't get me started, man. Yep.
So, Heaven's Revenge just joined us. Heaven, before we move off on this topic, did you want to chime in with any thoughts?
Well, Ballmer might have kept them as a, if you can hear me all right.
Yeah, we can.
Ballmer might have kept them as the devices or a personal computer company, because I don't think they're going to try to stay as a PC company for very much longer.
Not at all. Yeah, I think we're seeing them advance more towards, promoting Windows Azure, which is already a $1 billion business. We see them bringing Office over to multiple platforms, which, lol, good luck.
I don't think they're going to drop it, right? I think they're going to canonical focus a little bit on mobile. They're going to kind of make that shift where mobile is the priority, but desktop is an important client operating system that also interacts with the same cloud services that mobile does. I'm not saying this is a good idea, but what I'm saying is I think they see the consumer devices as just as critical to the success as their enterprise devices, because what Ballmer, I believe, has felt like he's learned from Apple is if you get the consumers to buy the gadgets, they'll bring it to the enterprise, and so you kind of it's like a front. You got to have a stake in the consumer space, and you got to have a stake in the enterprise space because the two merge together and meet. So I think he's thinking. I would assume Microsoft always sees Windows as key to that overall strategy, but it's no longer going to be a Windows company, right? I mean, Windows is going to be part of that company, but it's just like Canonical is no longer the Ubuntu desktop company, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I see them just and with their heavy focus on going into basically a hardware mindset. Someone said, well, they do hardware well. I mean, remember the Xbox, and that's true, but from my memory, that division was left alone enough to where they were able to be successful.
It was
other
very segmented.
Departments in Microsoft, it's kind of hit and miss, really. And I think Windows is probably the one that's really taken the biggest hit. So I don't know. This whole reorganization thing, where Ballmer ends up, he leaves, who comes in, all this sort of stuff. At the end of the day, what you're left with is they need to make a decision as to who the hell they're marketing their product to. I don't care if they're selling pears or bananas or what. It doesn't make any difference. Who's their market? And they can't seem to get their brain around that. You brought up a great point in that, they start with the enterprise and then, or they start as consumers and bring it into the enterprise, or even vice versa. In Microsoft's, honestly, Apple was always strongest in consumer. Microsoft was always strongest in enterprise. They need to figure out a way to keep it in the enterprise. And if they can get it trickle down to the consumer, great. But anything to do with the consumer is just going to backfire.
One of the things that they said that was interesting is that they put out this PowerPoint presentation that All Things Deep posted up on their website. And I don't know who this presentation was for, but Microsoft has got to have a PowerPoint for everything. So in the PowerPoint presentation for this acquisition, they mentioned that right now Microsoft makes $10 on average per Windows phone device. Now it's funny because I think they make more than that on an Android device. However, once they own Nokia, they project they will actually generate $40 per device. So it's interesting to see as a licensee. And they talk about how they say it used to be common knowledge that the best way to have a successful platform was to license it and become the standard. But now we've learned that the market has changed, and the best solution is an integrated approach of hardware and software and services. We're going to do it all, try to be the one all, answer all. And the problem with this is it's very against the whole Linux Unix philosophy, where you have a lot of tools that work together that do one thing really well. And I want to go back to when the iPhone just launched and Android just launched. Amazon didn't have their own mobile device. Google was totally cool with integrating with everybody. Apple didn't want to have to own absolutely everything and have an iCloud service and all of this garbage. So I could use Amazon for my MP3s. I could use Google for my search. It was this really nice, now everybody has to own the whole stack, right? Everything has to be an integrated, custom-built solution that's custom-tailored to you. And I'm just getting so sick of it.
But I think there's a market for it. You know, my wife certainly is a market for it. She wants everything because she likes all that. She doesn't want to get an app. She just wants it to work. I think your wife would probably agree with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, that's kind of her thing. So there are people that definitely want that for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I think we're moving. Oh, sorry, Miracode. I think we're moving towards a world that maybe not all users realize we're moving, because when Angela made the switch to Android for a little while, she was like, wait. What do you mean I need to put all of my photos and music up on the server? I don't. Exactly. I want them here on my hard drive. I don't want them up on the server. Why would I want to use my data to listen to my music that I already own? Like, why am I paying for it twice? In her mind, and you got to figure a lot of people are smarter than we give them credit for. Like, sometimes people can just see the common sense of a situation and say, wait a minute. I got to buy this track, and then I got to pay for the storage, and I got to pay for the data to stream it, instead of just having it sync over to my machine from my hard drive. That doesn't, for her, what was the killer for Android was that it was too dependent on Google services. She wanted to have everything local. She wanted to be able to just plug in a USB cord to her computer, click a sync button, everything is copied from her hard drive to the device. And
there's also a strong network effect with these platforms. Like my daughter's been saving up her money to buy herself she wanted an iPod Touch, and I said, well, how about a Nexus 4? Because it's, you know, ridiculously cheap, and it can do everything. And she was like, yeah, okay. And then when she thought about it a bit more, the reason she didn't want an Nexus 4 and she wanted an iPod Touch was because all of her friends in her class use FaceTime.
Oh, yeah.
And that would lock her out. And she wouldn't be able to talk to her friends. So there's a strong network effect that once, you know, half the kids in the class have an iPod or an iPhone, that's it. The rest of them are guaranteed to get one.
It's the whole ecosystem thing, isn't it?
It is the ecosystem.
If you've got Apple's ecosystem, you're tied into it. The people at work, they don't want to move over to Android because they're tied into iTunes. Everything's into iTunes. Whereas,
the same happens with Google. You can tied into Google with all of those services that ship on an Android device these days. You can get very tied into you know, the Play Store, and you bought all your purchases in the Play Store. You've got all your email in Gmail. It's a hard thing to switch away from.
Yeah, I agree with
iMessage tear my household apart.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Miracle, you might make the same point, and so is Alex Bell in the chat room. Is iMessage gets a lot of crap, but I think it's the most understated feature of, and FaceTime as well, although it kind of sucks that FaceTime is being relayed now, but iMessage, and the thing about iMessage is different than Hangouts, because Android has this now with Hangouts, and in some ways it's superior, because it can be opened up to groups. It's easy to throw Hangouts on any computer that has Chrome, so Hangouts are superior in every single way, except I'm a paranoid bastard, and I know that everything I say is being stored indefinitely by Google and available immediately by a Homeland Security note. Exactly. And if I say something to, like, you know, and it's just stupid things, but like, it's like if I say to my wife, oh yeah, I'll go upstairs and I'll beat the children, and she knows I'm joking, right? Because I would never do that, but that's in a text message now that is logged on a Google server forever, that is being indexed by the National Security Agency potentially, and it could never come up.
What's to say that Apple, the biggest consumer company around, isn't also storing everything? It
is. You never know, especially with Apple, and especially in a closed source environment. You never know. Now, their docs illustrate what happens is the Apple servers. The Apple servers essentially are involved for the initial handshake. So if Matt was an iPhone user and I was an iPhone user, and I sent Matt an iMessage, and that initial iMessage is coordinated by the iCloud service, whatever you want to call it, their push service. Once the two devices link, there is a key generated on each handset that is then exchanged, and they then communicate directly to each other from that point forward.
Maybe that's just because the Apple ecosystem has been directly tied into the business world, so they've had to develop that kind of encryption.
I think what
maybe
it is,
when it happens to Android, they'll update it, or they'll have to update it to be able to enter into that ecosystem.
I think it's deeper than that by an order of magnitude. What I think it is Google is inherently a internet connected company. Everything is orchestrated through the cloud. Everything is synced through the cloud. Like in Google, you don't sync your calendar, right? Google Calendar is the master source of the calendar. You can push and subscribe. But Apple was a company that existed before there was an internet. So what Apple does, like, here's another. Apple is local LAN first, and they don't have any reason to be internet first. For example, AirPlay. When you AirPlay something from an iOS device to an Apple TV, that is a direct IP connection from the iOS device to the Apple TV. But when you use Chromecast, that sends a notification message up to the cloud. The cloud then orchestrates the connection from the YouTube video down to the Chromecast, initiates the play, and then the commands from your handset are sent up to the cloud server, and the cloud server sends the commands down to the Chromecast. Potentially, each one has its advantages for sure, but one is inherently more private because
connection completely. Can't hear you.
One is inherently more private because it never has to leave your LAN. And the fact that iMessage and FaceTime can in some capacities work like that, and the fact that it enables free text messaging and that they support pictures and messages is a huge advantage to that platform. That's all I'm saying. So that is a lock-in that we don't even talk about when we talk about Ubuntu Touch or Firefox OS. We talk about apps, but we don't even talk about all of these services like video stores and music stores and these messaging services, Hangouts or iMessages, that are sort of becoming indispensable for some people.
Sure. I think both Google and Apple are inherently evil. I just think they do evil differently.
Exactly.
I know we get some flack for the Ubuntu Software Center, but if you buy stuff from the Software Center, they're just a bunch of PPAs, and you can just log into Launchpad and get those packages back out and port them across to another Linux distro if you like. It's not so easy on either iOS or Android.
Yeah, good point.
Another thing. Back to the original point, regarding whether the move by Microsoft to Nokia is going to affect Ubuntu Phone and such, is those like Canonical and Mozilla and Yola, they don't care if you use Amazon for your books and Google Music for your music. They don't care. It's just to create this wonderful OS that everything could kind of just coexist on. And I think that's kind of the point we need to get back to, regarding these new kind of, I guess you could say, indie OSs.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also helps define their market. That's their market for people that want to select and choose those individual services. Folks like us that care about that sort of thing. That's attractive. Yeah, no, I think that's great because it definitely defines that market.
So my solution for this was the kind of the final straw that made me roll my own XMPP server. Is because I just wanted to, all of this NSA stuff has made me it's not that I'm worried about being monitored. It crosses my mind now. I think about it. I was doing a whole bunch of reading about Syria recently, and then I got down a path. So there's been protests outside of John Kerry's house. Well, I haven't seen that on the news. So I wanted to see pictures of it. So then I realize I'm searching for Syria locations on Google Maps. I'm searching for chemical weapons. I'm searching for John Kerry's house. I mean, maybe nothing happens, but the fact that I have to worry about it makes me uncomfortable. And so I just I'm going to go to XMPP. I'm going to chat with my wife on our own private chat server. So that way I never have to worry about it at all. It never even crosses my mind. It's not a distraction anymore. And I like that peace of mind. And I like the idea that Yala or Ubuntu Touch or Firefox OS is more about the phone getting something on there, but not necessarily locking you into any particular service. Mm-hmm. That, to me, as a customer, might be their biggest advantage, that they don't have that ecosystem.
I completely agree with that. And I think the way I've always looked at privacy long before all this stuff with privacy concerns really came about is I always looked at privacy as a very simple analogy in that absolutely, I can, if I choose to, stand in front of my window and get undressed and hop into the shower. And if someone sees me, it's really no big deal.
Please don't.
But I feel more comfortable if no one has to subject their eyes to that.
Right.
And I just pull the blinds. And that's kind of where I see this, taking privacy back into our own hands thing. It's that, it's more, for me, it's out of principle. It's just it's none of their damn business, period. Doesn't matter why. It's just none of their damn business.
Yeah.
That's just my perspective. I just keep it simple.
All right. So while we got the mumble line open, I wanted to toss something around in chat room. I'll watch you too. So something I get an email about once a day is, hey, the CAPTCHA isn't working on the Jupyter Colony. Well, the Jupyter Colony is the form, not, Jupyter Colony is kind of what is an overall branching title that we have for a lot of things, but the Jupyter Colony form, specifically the PHP BB bulletin board that we have up at jupiterbroadcasting.com/forum, is retired. It's in sort of read-only mode. We're not allowing new account creations. There's still activity there. Partially because I don't know. So the main reason is I don't have the time to take care of that anymore. And it's something that just needs attention from time to time, and I don't have it. So I thought, well, okay, social networks have kind of replaced this, but then not everybody wants to have a social network account. Reddit kind of replaces, but not everybody wants to have a Reddit account.
Right.
So we have a great G+ Jupyter Colony community. And I really would like to have seen everything move from the forums to that, but so many people said, I don't want to use G+. So what, in this day and age, there's apparently some forums that the community still wants to organize on and discuss, a subset of the community, but they don't want to create accounts on some other services servers or anything like that. What do you use? Or maybe are forums just dead? Is it just maybe time we just say goodbye forums, you're in read-only mode, stop trying to make accounts, everybody? I mean, I kind of have, but people are still trying to do it, still trying to sign up, still trying to engage in conversation in there.
We've been promoting in Ubuntu. We've been promoting Discourse, which is made by the same people who make Stack Exchange, Jeff Atwood, and it's brilliant. We've stood up UbuntuDiscourse.org, and it's a really lovely way to have discussion. It looks a bit like a forum and a bit like Stack Exchange. It's got the best bits of Stack Exchange and the best bits of forums.
What's the management like? So, what's the
This
is it
something
hosted
I've been
or?
thinking about for a while.
So we run it on. I think we run it on HP Cloud, but you can run it on anything. It runs on Linux. We've written a Juju charm for it, so we can stand up an instance anywhere, anytime. And we have the upstream developers contribute on our discourse when
nice.
our users.
Yeah.
when our
This
users,
I like. Yeah,
report
I agree.
problems.
I think this is
And you don't have to
appropriate
sign up
approach.
It uses OpenID or whatever, so you can sign in with some other single sign-on. It's really
That is
nice.
pretty cool. All right, that's a good recommendation.
Well, it's attractive, and
take
like you said,
advantage
with
of
the
it.
sign-on, that's great.
Yeah.
So is this actually hosted? As in, could we host our own copy?
Yes,
Okay.
it's open source.
It's something I've been thinking about for quite a while, Chris, because I'm one of those people that tried to sign up. I'm actually a PHP developer, and I was going to send you an email actually and ask if you wanted something built, but it's funny that you've spoken about it now.
Yeah. I know. I get emails about it a lot, so I know it's kind of a topic of that. I just don't really have a great forum to address a forum to address it. I do like this discourse thing, but I guess the fundamental question I have is it still needed today? I mean, between all the social networks, the IRC, a Mumble server, TeamSpeak servers, the subreddits, do we really need a forum too?
I was I've sworn off forums ever since the change of the last Jupyter Colony forum change. I've been through forums ever since.
Dude, that was like 6 years ago.
Wow. Never have I gone on another forum since.
Well, I was thinking of maybe doing something similar to maybe have a forum, but with the social networking aspect built in, kind of with our own custom accounts on the Jupyter Colony.
So how would that work?
We would have to find some software to run it on, or have somebody develop it.
Well, since Discourse is open source, why don't we just extend that?
Yeah, I'm gonna look at it. I think that's something we should look into right there. I think
that's the smartest approach.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys. So I'm going to mute the channel just for a little bit as we get to a couple of emails, then we got to run because we're running long. It is a hard thing to get to these emails, Matt, but we got some good ones. We got some good ones, and I think this one came in. I think this one might have been on. We got some bit messages too. And it was from B via bit message. Chris and Matt, great job last Unplugged. We're going with Linux Unplugged now. Thanks to you clowns, I will never, ever get through my podcast back catalog. Not only do I have another JB podcast on my list, but you've turned me on to Star Trek podcasts. So now I get around 130 podcasts in my current queue. I guess I'll have to tell my boss that it's your fault. On the subject of mail servers, I've been running one for years. I started out running Colab on a Spark station back in the day. That box died about 10 years ago, so I began running Zimbra on a P4 rack mount I had in a basement. He likes Zimbra quite a bit. He says, I was getting email from my public mail servers and collecting them locally. However, since ISPs had enough I had to push, the ISP had to push the force server use, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to jump ahead here. He says that now that the NSA shenanigans have happened, that he's doubled down on this in light of all of that, and he's gonna set it up for real again, and maybe this time include Nagios alerts and things like that for when it goes offline.
Wow.
Yeah,
sounds pretty snazzy.
I know, I agree. So, all right, so I want to read just a couple more. I'm gonna make it quick because I promised Matt. I promised we would do it, so I cannot go back on my promise. Here we go.
We did make that claim.
Juris, Linux handhelds. Hello, Chris and Matt. Can you share your opinion on Linux handhelds in the open market at the moment? Like, for example, the Open Pandora, also I have the new GW. Wanted to know what we thought about Linux on like handheld consoles. Matt, do you have any thoughts on that?
Honestly, I can't speak intelligently to it because I haven't really subjected myself to it extensively.
I think that actually is kind of an answer. It's kind of like I
want to. I'm interested. I'm open-minded.
I got this GCW 0, but it's kind of like you'll be really great. What would make this GCW perfect is like if Good Old Games was just like, boom, that's our console of choice, and we're just going to put a
you're talking,
right?
Yes, right.
Because you can run DOSBox on this thing. So if you got DOSBox going on this, you could run a ton of Good Old Games, and if Good Old Games could make a package and just be like, pow, I really think then you'd really have something. Because the thing is these little handheld consoles like the Open Pandora and the GCW 0 are really cool. They're open. They're really neat. Each one of them does something unique and interesting. But at the end of the day, they're really going up against smartphones now. 5-6 years ago that maybe not have been the case, but now they really are going up against smartphones. So it's really they got to stand out in some way. So I'm hopeful in the GCW, but we'll see.
That would be cool. I love the idea with Good Old Games because that really solves the ecosystem problem for that particular thing.
Yeah, they just got to see the light. And I am a big GOG fan, but just like we've kind of seen them not really get the whole Linux thing.
Right.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, chicken or the egg.
Exactly. So John writes in. He says, "I've been using Play on Linux for some time now, and the most part, I had moderate success. What are your thoughts or experiences using any of these, and which has worked best for you? I'd love to see some information on the subject."
Well, boy, for myself, as a rule, I think Wine is a fine project where developers have put in a lot of work and done wonderful things. As a usage thing, I won't use Wine. I will play in traffic on the freeway before using it, just because it's not really my. It's just not my style. I try to put my feet down and stick in a native environment if at all possible.
Yeah, I almost, in some cases, will prefer to just do full-on virtualization.
True.
That's it. And this, I think, goes back to, as a Linux user, when I see something of value, I buy it. And since the mid-2000s, I don't know when, for a very long time, I have bought every release of Crossover Office. I have a current version as of today. And I'm not I Play on Linux I've had really hit and miss success with, but Crossover... If they say it works in that, so in Crossover, first of all, you get a really nice wrapper around Wine.
You do.
That sets up bottles real nice. So each thing you get running under Wine, it has its own self-contained configuration. You can load stuff into it, or you can have everything isolated. You can have different versions. So I can have an XP bottle, a 2000 bottle, and a Vista bottle, or whatever. Yeah. And that's how I do Star Trek Online. And once and to their credit, once Crossover said, yeah, we're going to support Star Trek Online, it has works solidly. And a lot of things are like that. And sometimes their list is a little lackluster. Like it's like Office 2010 is the latest version.
But I found it to be accurate. That's one thing I will give them props for, is that if they say it works, it works.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that'll give them props.
They've expanded a community supported section now. So they've got ones that users can submit that have been sort of vetted. It's nice. It's still not great though. Like for example, Star Trek Online takes 10 minutes to launch. Once it launches, it's okay. But for some reason under Crossover Wine, it takes 10 minutes.
Sure.
I know that, so I just accept it, and it works fine. It's fine. But I'm with Matt. It's my last resort.
Exactly. And one other thing I thought they did well is, at least they used to do bounties, so where you could actually chip in to help make this more compatible. I don't remember if they still do that or not now, but there used to be you could actually throw money in that direction to say, I want this particular game or particular app to run.
I don't know. I haven't tried that for a long time, but they had a voting system. I think that's still around. A couple of quick things I just wanted to mention. This is like pissing in the wind here, but if anybody out there has access to a computer around them that has iTunes, Linux Unplugged just hit the new and noteworthy section of iTunes. If you give us a rating and a comment, that helps discovery. It keeps us kind of in the charts for a while. Once we're up there, it helps. And the reason why I mention that is because if we stay up there for a few days, we'll probably have a few new several thousand people find the show. And that's a great thing for Linux and for the network in general. So I know it can be challenging for some of you Linux users out there to get access to iTunes. But if it happens somehow, we would appreciate a vote.
Absolutely. And that's another thing you can use Wine for. While you're not going to be able to do a lot with it, you can probably get an older version of iTunes.
Crossover has like an installer script for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so I think that was all the emails. Now, I was kicking around an idea before the show.
Okay.
We don't have to do it. You have final call on this, Matt.
All right.
A lot of the pre-shows on Unplugged have been Star Trek heavy. Talk a lot of Star Trek on the live show. Unplugged, we're recording Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific over at jblive.tv, which is 9 p.m. UTC, I believe. Join us over at jblive.tv if you can do it. What do you think, Matt, of watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Episode 1, before next week's Unplugged? And then at the last like 10 minutes or so of Unplugged, we'll sort of wrap up all of our topics, and we'll talk about that first episode. And it might just be for just like a minute or two or something.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm totally fine with that. Shoot me an email reminder, though.
The DS9 challenge? You want to do the DS9 challenge? Okay.
And that's one, actually my favorite out of the entire. I actually prefer that over TNG in a lot of ways. So yeah, I watched the hell out of it. So that's not a problem.
I was really not sure what direction to go. TNG, I leaned heavily. TOS, I definitely had to consider. I mean, it's the original. The reason I'm not doing TOS is there's already a really great podcast out there that's talking about TOS, Mission Log. I mentioned them before. And I don't want to step on their thing, and that's their whole show. But I need to bring DS9 back into my life. As a Star Trek fan, I go through these cycles of Star Trek re-ingestation, where I reprocess and rewatch and re-understand. And I am now at that point with Deep Space Nine, and I need to do it in order. So I'm in for the long haul as long as the audience and you are. So if you guys can stick with it every single week, I'm up for another episode. I can somehow manage to watch one episode of Deep Space Nine on Netflix between now and next week. I can make that happen.
Yeah. You can make that commitment, right?
Yeah, I can do it. And I don't know if you remember, but it's a good episode. You got like some Borg cube action in there. You got Jean-Luc in there.
Right. It's really setting the pace for that first season.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how you guys respond to that. And I know I said I'd give you some more of my thoughts on the GCW Zero, but honestly, I just haven't had much time to play with it since last. I did play with it a little more, and I'm kind of waiting to see. My wife really likes it.
Oh,
she thought it was really awesome. She thought it was like, she said, I think her words were like, it looks like a much more modern DS or something. She said it looks really good. So I'm going to see how my kids react to it too, because they haven't really done a lot of controller stuff. So maybe the next week or so we'll do a little chat about the GCW Zero.
Sounds good.
All right, so I'm going to bring us to a close then. If you want to email the show, you can do that. Just email linuxactionshow@jupiterbroadcasting.com. We'll be watching that. Also, you can submit things to our subreddit over at linuxactionshow.reddit.com, and that's probably your best out of all of your resources. That's probably the best way to get something in front of us. You can always hang out in our IRC room too, of course, and join us there and chat with us. And don't forget to join us live and subscribe and download. And if you're near an iTunes machine, we could use the help a little bit there too.
Absolutely.
All right, Matt, we'll have a great week. I'll see you on Sunday.
Sounds good. See you then.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of Linux Unplugged. We'll see you right back here next Tuesday.